Welcome to another edition of Cal's Corner radio show here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. And the executive producer of the show is, of course, the one and only Rob McConnell. Now, folks, as I say at the beginning of every show, I hope, we cover everything from politics to the paranormal, which is a wide variety of subjects. So let's briefly get the politics out of the way before we get to something that also starts with the P, but it's not the paranormal, it's politically incorrect stuff, which we'll come back to in a moment. Now, let's talk about politics real quickly. As everybody knows who's following this issue, there's going to be a vote in the U.S. Senate to either confirm or reject Supreme Court nominee Mr. Judge Kavanaugh for the post of Supreme Court. He would, of course, join that bench if he's confirmed. Now, there is a controversy, of course, over his nomination. Depending on whom you believe, he is either a sexual predator in the past or he's innocent. Depends, again, on who and what you believe. There has been, thankfully, a secondary FBI investigation, or I guess a secondary way is not the best way to describe it. It's actually the sixth or seventh time that they've been investigating his background. But this is a follow-up that's been done and agreed to by both parties in light and as a consequence of the fallout of testimony from various alleged female victims who have come forth and have testified that he behaved inappropriately towards them in the past. Now, I will tell you that I really don't know what's going on regarding whether he's innocent or guilty. What I object to is the politicizing of this event. Shame on our politicians, any politicians around the world in any country, especially one that values itself to be a genuine free democracy, that is supposed to be a republic that follows a constitution. If America is really all of those things, and I'd like to believe that it is, in fact, I believe it is, I know it is, then it will stop playing politics, as politicians will stop playing politics with the Supreme Court, because politics does not belong in the court, just like politics doesn't belong in sports. And I understand that they're two different things. Sports is very different from politics. Politics is a lot more important than sports. But they're both equally important, and they should both be apolitical. In my short lifetime, I have seen the whole process of nominating Supreme Court members and other key justices to various federal courts become so politicized that it seems that the main qualifications of a lot of these candidates are based on what you believe rather than can you interpret the law correctly or as it should be in line with our Constitution, Bill of Rights, and countless other laws. Those are the issues. It used to be that we had candidates that both parties, Republicans and Democrats, could come together on, unite around, and say, yeah, we want this person. We want this individual. We don't want this individual. But no, it's not that way anymore. Instead, it's he said, she said. And as the Republicans have pointed out, and they're right, and for the record, I don't support the Republicans as a rule, and I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. Instead, I'm neutral. I like to take each issue on its own individual merits or lack of, and then make a decision from there. I've never been a my party right or wrong, nor my country right or wrong type guy. If a country does something wrong, fine. When it does it right, that's great too, but call it like it really is. And I miss those days when we had sanity in Washington, D.C., instead of further insanity. And you can see what's happening around the world, both with the U.S. politically, as well as globally in other countries. What you're seeing when countries don't get it right, when they go too far left or when they go too far right, is there's this political backlash and this tired pendulum swing that goes back and forth. If the liberals get elected, swept into office because the conservatives have failed, after the liberals will mess it up too, then the conservatives come back into power, they'll mess it up, then the liberals go back into power. It keeps happening over and over. Nothing ultimately gets solved. And that is the tragedy of all of this. So let's say that Kavanaugh does get confirmed. He is the nightmare that liberals and the progressive left would have you believe that he is. Roe versus Wade gets overturned. Again, you would have more of this swing back and forth. And at the end of the day, you don't have genuine progress. Instead, you have time windows of progress, and then something stupid is done to undermine or destroy that progress. And in the middle of all of that, real justice, real freedom, real democracy are lost. So, those are my views on this subject. I'm not alone in feeling this way. Most Americans, as far as I know, and most people, even members of the media, are disgusted by the politics of this, even those that ironically engage in it. They engage in it as a counter often to the other side because they politicized it, because the alternative is that if you don't say anything, then you just kind of roll over and accept defeat and accept that the disgraceful behavior started by the other side is acceptable. And that's not the way to approach this issue. So we'll see what happens. I'm on the fence concerning it. All I care about, I think, like most Americans, is that the truth come out and that we move forward. If he's a good nominee and he's innocent, let him be confirmed. If he's guilty, don't confirm him. Simple. All right. Now let's switch to a different subject that starts with a P. Let's call it being politically correct. And I will tell you, and anyone who knows me, they will tell you that I'm not a politically correct person. In fact, I think that being PC is really another way of saying that you're phony. And I remember and I miss the days where nobody cared if you were politically correct or not. In fact, the very idea was insane, right up there with fashion police and unicorns and rainbows. In other words, they don't exist. So let me go over a bit of background. Where it concerns me, at least, I can only speak for myself. I'm the kind of guy, you can tell by the way I dress, that I have no sense of fashion. I don't. I don't really care whether I look fashionable or not. In fact, I'll be honest, I hate ties. I've never enjoyed wearing them. As far as I'm concerned, a tie should be designed like a hand around your throat, choking you, because when I wear them, that's how I feel. So, although I've worn them on TV in the past, in major TV appearances like CNN's Larry King Live and other stuff like on Fox TV, I'll let you in on a little secret. Those are clip-on ties. Why? Because I just don't like real ties. I don't know how to tie a real tie. I don't care that I don't know how to tie a real tie. I don't give a rip. And the only reason I wore clip-on ties is because I was told they look good and that I had to wear a tie on the show. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bothered. And in a lot of other shows, I didn't bother, like when I was on ABC TV, had debated Kevin Randall and Frank Kaufman over Roswell, didn't wear a tie, thankfully. Was very happy I didn't have to, didn't have that choking feeling. Okay, so I have kind of the same approach where it concerns socks. I'll just grab two socks out of the drawer. I don't care if they match or not. I just don't care. I don't care because there's no such thing as fashion police. And as I tell everybody from my mom to my friends, especially girlfriends and things like that that seem to care about whether they match or not, show me a single fashion police officer, give me a ticket, and the moment I get a fine and I'm forced to pay it or go to prison, then I'll care. But until then, I don't care. I care that the socks are functional. I really don't care what color. The other day, I was out with my mother. We were shopping around, and I learned the hard way that you just don't spend a certain amount on shoes. Otherwise, they're not worth the money because they don't protect your feet. So I'm out trying to buy a more expensive pair of shoes, this time not to waste my money. And she asked me a simple question. What color do you want? I told her, I don't care. I care that they're functional, that they fit, and that they don't kill my feet. If they're pink, fine. If they're purple, that's fine too. If they have a billion colors, that's great. I just don't care. Just that kind of guy. So I've always been a bit on the blunt side. I think that blunt English, blunt conversation, not mincing words, telling the truth, I think that's the way to communicate. I miss the old school days where you grew up with comedians like George Carlin. Carlin was a very blunt guy. he would have a field day today. I would love to have seen him as a moderator for a debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine him moderating such a debate? And for those young people out there who don't know who George Carlin was, just go to YouTube. You can watch a lot of his performances. Again, it's Carlin, Carlin, first name George. You'll see some very politically blunt stuff. He was way ahead of his time. He had an enormous vocabulary, loved words and vocabulary, said a lot of deep stuff, said a lot of funny stuff. And of course, he wasn't politically correct. And he had monologues about euphemisms, and he pointed out how stupid they were. And he was talking during a time where this stuff was becoming fashionable. And his fear was that, and he was right, that if we didn't nip it in the bud, that it would somehow become mainstream in society. And of course, that would not be a good thing. And he has since been proven right. And this is also one of the fears I have with runaway, uncritical thinking and belief in the so-called paranormal. Without critical thinking, you can't progress the human race forwards, and things like science suffer, and that's unfortunate. So what we're going to do after this commercial break here is we're going to come back and we're going to go through an A to Z list of real examples, of stupid examples, but real ones from life, of being politically correct, where actual stupid decisions have been made, rules have been passed, laws have been passed, outlawing certain kinds of behavior because it's considered not to be acceptable anymore. We'll be right back.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
All right, we're back here for the third segment here on Cal's Corner radio show here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, before we went to the break at the half hour, we were talking about how we're going to come back and start this segment by starting with the F word. Now, I'm not talking about that F word. I'm talking about the F word as in F for fat, and how, according to social online police or social justice warriors, all caps champions, whatever you want to call them, the use of the word fat is now a crime, a social crime, and it should be avoided. But of course, the way they use it is hypocritical, and it's okay if they do that, but shame on you if you use it against the way that they claim that you should. Now, let me explain their convoluted logic here. Now, according to F, the F word is for fat, okay? So it's no longer a swear word, the other F word. It's F is for fat, all right? So according to fat liberation activists, okay, yes, there are such people who call themselves this, the word fat is used to, quote, shame people who might not fit the conventional beauty standards of our society, unquote, all right? So the word fat is used to shame people in their minds who might not fit the conventional beauty standards of our society. In other words, if I say that somebody is fat, in their minds, it's not because it's a fact. It's because I'm looking at somebody who doesn't fit the conventional definition of beauty. Now, again, this is so convoluted, folks. I will tell you again, I've been to over 24 countries, and I will tell you that the definition of beauty in those countries, and to every country around the world, doesn't matter what it is, into every society, into every country, into every individual, is relative to the observer. I know guys who like women who are on the heavy side. I know guys who like women who are beanpoles. That's what they tell me. That's their word, their description. Are they shaming a woman when they say they like a woman who they describe as a beanpole? No, they're actually meaning it in a complimentary sense. It's their word. They're describing somebody who's really thin. Well, let me tell you a true story real quickly. When I first moved to India, I was at Daily Post newspaper. I was head of branding, a journalist, a columnist. I was also director of HR there. I was there for several years, did many different things, and I divided my time between executive stuff and, of course, being a journalist. Matter of public record, had thousands of articles published. Well, I received an invitation from a talent agency called Creativators to be a judge at a beauty contest, okay? So I was honored. I went there, was a judge. But my first time as a judge there, I admit, in my opinion, I was a disaster, and I'll tell you why. What I found out about 3/4 of the way through the contest, and it was on for several hours in the evening, is that the way they judge the standard of beauty in that part of the world, in Punjab and northern India, is not the same as they judge the beauty standards in Europe, especially, and America. As it was explained to me by one of the judges, because I was asking her how come I wasn't picking any winners that night, I felt bad for the women I chose that didn't win. They said, Cal, we like our women with a little more meat on them in this part of the world. That's exactly practically a quote in the way it was explained to me. So I'm happy to say that when I was a judge for the next several years in a row at that contest, plus other ones, like North India's Next Top Model contest and so on for several years running, I was able to pick the winners. I made the adjustment because I understood that their definition of beauty was different. than my definition. I was in Europe 10 years. I was used to a very different standard of beauty, which of course was still different than the standard of beauty I grew up with in the US before moving to Europe, spending a decade there, then being in India for many years. So again, my own experience has told me that the definition of beauty is relative. So if I say I'm fat, I'm overweight, I'm not shaming anybody. And if I want to shame myself, I have that right. Okay. So I'm being factual. I'm overweight, fat. And if that is correct, there's nothing wrong with it. Shame has nothing to do with it. All right. Now, on the other hand, these people will tell you don't use the word fat ever because it shames people. It violates people's sense of beauty or standards or whatever. But yet, if you say that you're going to reclaim your fat, that's an actual term they use, they view that as a term that empowers you. Now, what does reclaim your fat mean? Think about that, folks. All right. Well, according to them, it means that I'm getting my fat back, like I'm losing weight. Now, that makes no sense, of course, because if you're reclaiming something, you're taking it back, right? If you reclaim waste, you're taking it back. You're recycling it. Well, fat is fat. Protein is protein. Carbohydrates are carbohydrates. They're not the same things. So the term is scientifically ridiculous. It's like saying I'm a little bit pregnant. It makes no sense. But yet these people throw around words as if they mean nothing, as if each one is an individual tinker toy that they can mix and match with abandon, and that they can just project what they want you to believe it should mean versus the reality of what each individual word means and what it should mean when it's combined. They don't play by any of the rules of logic, grammar, or common sense. So please don't fall into that trap. I would just caution you to use that word logically, and hopefully logic will win at the end of the day. Now let's talk about another F word that is forbidden according to social justice warriors. It's another F word called forefathers. All right? Yes, according to them, now this is according to Cardiff Metropolitan University. Their code of practice actually says that it is sexist. You're being a sexist if you include any term that has fathers in it, like grandfather. Don't be a sexist. Don't call grandfather grandfather. Okay? Instead, you should say ancestors or forebears instead of forefathers. Boy, Abraham Lincoln would be upset, wouldn't he? 7 years ago, our forefathers. Anyway, so you can't say that anymore. You're being a sexist if you say forefather, even if he's a male, and he's absolutely a man, there's no question. You're being sexist, all right? So their code actually lists 34 words and phrases that should be avoided as part of this effort to embrace cultural diversity. And speaking of cultural diversity, you have to remember now, folks, that if you are white, okay, and you dare to do anything that has anything to do with any other culture, you suddenly get charged with and are guilty of cultural appropriation or misappropriation. How dare you borrow something from another culture, even when you're honoring it in 100% positive tradition? How dare you do that because you can't appropriate or misappropriate someone else's culture? Now, think about that for a moment. Is there any concept that's more stupid than that? What makes cultures different and diverse and makes us so interesting as a species is our diversity. If we were all the same, even if you were an interesting person, it would still be boring when you've got 7 billion clones of yourself walking around. That would be very boring. What makes us interesting is our diversity. We need to celebrate the diversity. Again, having been to over 24 countries myself, I can tell you that if I were to have kids, I would want them to be able to embrace the best of what's out there. It doesn't matter what country or tradition it's from. As long as it's a good thing, it's a good thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. So, of course, you have to embrace other cultures. You know, America especially is an immigrant nation. It's a melting pot. Well, so is all of Europe. Literally in Europe, you can have breakfast in Prague. You can have dinner in Paris. You can have lunch in Poland. You can have, brunch if you want in Spain. I mean, things are so close together. To put it into perspective, look at a country like India, okay? There's over 5,000 languages there. India itself, just the country, is the size of the entire European Union, which of course has over 2,000 or 24 members. And Europe is the size of India. And India, of course, it would take several Indias to equal the size of the United States. Canada is another huge country, of course. Russia, of course, is the biggest in the world. And you look at these incredible cultures, and it is their diversity that makes them as great as they are. So, of course, you've got to mix and match things. There isn't a single culture on this earth now, other than ones that are isolated, where they're deliberately protected and not in contact with Western civilization. We're all the byproduct of cultural mingling over time. And because of that, cultures have grown and improved. And yet, according to these types, these morons that run things today and are running them into the ground, that's my argument at least, it is a sin to culturally appropriate anything. You have to stay pure, even though they can't tell you what pure is. And of course, there is no such thing. Too much time has gone past. There's too many people. And the human race has survived only because of evolution and cultural diversity. We'll be back after this commercial break.
From our broadcast studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, to the world and beyond, you're watching the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
AVS Media Den.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world, interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologist, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on Cal's Corner radio show here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, as we work our way through the politically incorrect alphabet of so-called ridiculous terms or politically incorrect terms, things that the so-called social justice warriors have now banned, and the progressive liberal left are saying you shouldn't do this anymore. There's actual universities out there that people are paying some very good, expensive money for to educate their kids, only to have them be hit with this kind of crap. Let's go through the list here. Continue. Now, we're done with the letter F, and again, these are just short examples. This is not the complete universal list. That list will never end, unfortunately. But let's go on to G now, the letter G. Now, according to these types, you're supposed to avoid using the word girl because it's demeaning, it's belittling, it's sexist, okay? So, if you see a little girl, who's a little girl, let's say she's 4, 5, 6 years young, she's a little girl. There's no question she's a little girl. Literally, figuratively, however else you want to measure it, she is a little girl. You can't call her that anymore. Instead, you have to call her a woman, or if she's an adult, she's an adult woman. No girls. So when girls say to each other, you go girl, or there you go girl, or however women talk to each other, I've heard them say girl to each other, that's just not okay. They have to call each other women or woman or adult woman to distinguish from the young women who used to be known as girls. Okay? I hope you're clear on that. Now, you also have to be careful when you use the word G as genius, okay? Now, you're not supposed to call anybody a genius anymore, even if they are. So Einstein, as brilliant as he was, and there's no question about this, know your basic history, we can't call Einstein a genius anymore. We can't call Steve Jobs a genius. We can't call Thomas Edison a genius. We can't call Bill Gates a genius. We can't call Da Vinci or Michelangelo a genius. There's no geniuses anymore. Now, why can't we call anybody a genius? Well, here's a quote from Lucy D. Lapp, who's a lecturer at the British History at Cambridge. Now, the British have so much time on their hands that they're running their own language into the ground, known as English. No wonder most kids want to learn American English. I don't blame them, at least it has a point. But here's what she says. She says that if you use the term genius, that it should be discouraged because, quote, it carries assumptions of gender inequality and also of class and ethnicity, unquote. So if I say somebody's a genius, John's a genius. He figured it out. Suddenly, I'm guilty of gender inequality and of class, middle class, poor class, who knows, upper class, and ethnicity. Is this stupid or what? No, if I say John's a genius, that's just my opinion. I said John because that's his name. I said he's a genius because he figured whatever out. And I think he's a smart guy for figuring it out. So what does that have to do with his sex? Nothing. What does that have to do with whether he's middle class, upper class, or no class? Nothing. What does that have to do with what race he is? What ethnic background he has? Nothing. Why do people believe this stupidity? I don't know. But according to Lucy D. Lapp, again, she's a lecturer at the British history at Cambridge. We have to, avoid doing this because, again, it carries assumptions of gender inequality and also of class and ethnicity, unquote. So saith the highly educated scholar. What do I know? I've never been a professor of history at Cambridge, so maybe my opinion is invalid. Anyway, it is what it is. Now, let's continue. Letter H, okay? H is no longer H, like for history, it's now hate speech, okay? So, you have to be careful now, because if you go ahead and say things that people will disagree with, you can be charged in England with what's called hate speech, okay? Now, there's actually a crime in England called non-crime hate incident, all right? Now, think about that. A non-crime hate incident. This is where you engage in hateful behavior, but it's not a crime, although you can be charged with it, okay? Now, if it's a non-crime, there's no crime, right? But yet you can be charged for engaging in a hateful incident that's not a crime, even though it's not a crime. If this isn't twisted, I don't know what is. The English doesn't make any sense, okay? And what happened is there was some tiff that happened between the Home Secretary, Amber Rudd. She gave some speech last year's Tory party conference, and it was reported to the police as a hate crime by left-wing Oxford professor Joshua Silver, who apparently was offended at what the speech was said in the speech. So they issued a citation as a non-crime hate incident. Okay, so there you go. So let's talk about I for illegal. Now, we've talked about this before. We have to remember now that today we have no illegal aliens. They don't exist, folks. In fact, the only aliens that seem to exist now are from outer space. There's no illegal aliens anywhere. These are people who used to be known as people who would illegally travel from one country to another. Those used to be called illegal aliens, but we can't say that term anymore because it's racially offensive, it's divisive, it demonizes those who go to countries illegally, that is, they break the law. You can't call them criminals, even though they are, because criminals commit crimes, and crimes are illegal. So instead, we have to, use twisted English that makes no sense, English that would flunk anybody who had an IQ over 10 and understood basic English. We have to call them illegal immigrants, okay? Now, I remind everybody that an immigrant is somebody who legally comes to a country. They follow a process, they fill out paperwork, they pay their fees. They're there legally. They're there to migrate legally. They are immigrants, therefore they're legal. But now you can have illegal immigrants. That's like saying legal criminals. No, you can't have legal criminals. Criminals are illegal, period, by their very definition. Now, you can't have illegal aliens, even though they are. So what about illegal migrants? Well, apparently nobody's thought of that term, even though that's exactly what they are. They're migrating. They're moving from one place to another. Now, whether you do it legally or not, that's another nuance. That's another level. That's another detail. Has nothing to do with whether you're moving. Your moving has something to do with whether you're moving. It's an act that stands by itself. You either move or you don't. Whether you do it legally or not, okay? It's like driving. Whether you drive legally or not, that's separate from whether you're driving. Same issue, okay? So we do have illegal migrants, but not illegal aliens anymore. So they say that if you use the term illegal, okay, now remember, during the Obama administration, agencies were told that actions are illegal, people are not, that the word illegal has been applied and abused by those advocating harsh immigration policies that are undoubtedly racist and xenophobic. The politically correct terminology is an undocumented immigrant. Well, see, there's another stupid term. Somebody knows who these people are. They know who they are. They can name their parents in most cases. They can probably tell you what village they came from, maybe what school they went to. They could probably name their uncle, maybe their pets. They know a lot of stuff. They know who they are. So they're documented to somebody somewhere. Just because we may not know who they are doesn't mean they're undocumented. It just means you don't know who they are. Okay? I may not know who lives 5 floors above me either. Doesn't mean they're undocumented. It just means I don't know who they are. So this term undocumented immigrants is about as stupid as illegal or illegal immigrants because, again, it's an oxymoron. But yet that's how low we have fallen in our standards. Okay? Now, the list goes on and on and on. We're not even through most of the alphabet yet. We don't have time to finish it. But all we can say is that if this is the future of our society, where we can't clap because we might be offending somebody, where we can't say how beautiful a woman is because we might offend some imaginary sense of something, even though, excuse me, that is our opinion. What kind of society does that make us? Do we want to go the extreme way that communist China is going, where everybody starts out with a 0 social credit score, and based on what you read, how much time you spend doing this or that, you're rated, and then based on that rating, you're allowed to do or not do certain things? Do we want to go that direction as well? Of course not. The answer is to go neither extreme way. The answer is to always be real with the truth. And even if that truth offends us, we don't have a right to reject that truth. Instead, we must always accept it, embrace it, and champion it going forward. That's called progress. We'll be back next week for another show.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Welcome back to the second segment here on Kal's Corner Radio here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff and I'm your host, and the executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Now, we're talking about being politically correct or incorrect. Again, I'm a very blunt guy. I don't believe in being politically correct. Again, that is another way of saying you're being phony. I think in today's world, especially when we've got really incredibly deadly weapons, there's things like terrorism, there's social division, political outrage, intolerance going on. Yes, racism, let's be blunt about it. A lot of war going on out there. I think we especially need to be very blunt and not be politically correct. We just need to be correct. All right, so let's go through a list here. The list is kind of long. It's A through Z. Let's talk about avoiding eye contact, okay? Now, everybody knows what eye contact is. That's when you look at the other person and your eyes lock onto each other. You make eye contact. But according to Oxford University's Equality and Diversity Unit, people who avoid eye contact with others get accused of, quote, racist microaggression. Now, think about that, all right? So, apparently, if you avoid eye contact, you are being microaggressive and slightly racist. Now, we've become such a convoluted society today where you not only have aggressions, you have passive aggressions, you have microaggressions, you have mini aggressions, you have macroaggressions, you have probably, for all I know, aggressions. But be careful of this micro, macro, and mini, because if you don't keep those straight, you can be accused of many things that you're not, okay? So if you don't look at people in the eye, you're being discriminatory, you're being a racist, and you're engaging in microaggressive behavior. So don't do that. Always look them in the eye. Unless, of course, that makes them uncomfortable. Then, of course, you don't want to do that. So just be careful either way. Now, here's another issue. Let's call it the B's, whether you're born a man or born a woman. You have to be careful now because remember, as we proved on a previous show, there's over 100 different genders. The one that I find the most comical and laughable and stupid is transhuman. Now, again, a transhuman is somebody who believes that they're beyond human, which is ridiculous because anybody who thinks they're beyond human really is human. They're just being stupid about it. They're being transhuman in the sense of they're being stupid about being human. They're not beyond human. They just think they're beyond human, whether it's due to delusional problems or their ego, whatever. But they're still human. There's nobody who's beyond human, at least if you're human. You can't be. It's like saying a dog is more than a dog. No, a dog is a dog, and a cat is a cat, and so on. So whether you're born a man or born a woman, okay, you have to be careful now, folks, because that is now deemed to be offensive and inaccurate, okay? How dare you assume when you see a woman that she's a woman? She might be something else. So you have to kind of guess or fish or be careful because you don't want to offend them. Now, I'll be honest with you. In a recent trip where I had returned to the USA, uh, there were a couple things. One was Donald Trump was president, and second, I noticed that almost every woman seemed to have a tattoo. Okay, fine, that's their business. But there were people walking around because, again, being in India for many years, I just didn't see a lot of this. I didn't know what they were looking at them. I just could not tell. I remember one time I saw this man who was dressed as a woman, very beautiful, very attractive. All the makeup was in place, the eyeshadow was perfect, the fingernails were immaculate, skin tone was just flawless. I was tempted to ask the person what they did for a living, but it was kind of obvious in looking at them. But whether this was a he, she, it, they, us, them, whatever, I have no idea. I didn't have that conversation. I certainly wouldn't want to offend that person. So in that case, I literally didn't know what I was looking at other than a human being, whether it was a man or a female, male or female or something else. I don't know. I did not ask the person, didn't talk to the person long enough, just wasn't sure what I was looking at, didn't know. So just be careful, folks. Don't assume that a person is born a man or a woman, or that they're called a man or a woman. They could be something else. You're going to have to ask them, okay? All right, C for cat's eyes, okay? Now, there is an issue that actually came to a head in Suffolk City Council, okay? Believe it or not, the elected public representatives there decided that they were going to remove these signs that glowed in the dark when light hit them because they reminded people of cat's eyes, okay? And little kids might be a little afraid of that the heads of cats had been cut off or the eyes had been gouged out. They'd actually been placed in the hills, and these reflectors, because they reflected light, reminded people of cat's eyes. So they had to be removed because they might scare little kids. Now, instead of educating these young geniuses about what a reflector is and why it reflects light and why it's a good idea to put them out there in places in the countryside where the only source of light is an oncoming headlight from a car, and that they're actually there for your safety and protection. They help you see so you don't get in a wreck. Instead of educating them, we have to pull them because they might scare people because they look like cat's eyes. Okay, that was an actual decision that was made. Now, here's another one, and this has come up in the news again. Apparently, there's a movement across campuses around the world, and it's in the West, of course, especially among liberal, progressive campuses, where clapping or applauding, doing this, is offensive. You can't do that. Instead, you have to just jazz hand it. Okay, that's where you just shake your hands to the side. And you're not offending anybody by making this noise here. Now, I hope you find that offensive. I really don't care if you do. If this offends somebody when I'm trying to show my appreciation, and it's a universal gesture that you find almost in every culture around the world, goes back thousands of years, folks. If suddenly people are offended by that, that's their problem. I'm not going to sit there and make jazz hands just because the person next to me might be offended if I clap. I don't care. If that person's offended, it's their problem. It's not my problem. That person is not going to make it my problem. If I want to clap, I'm going to clap. If I want to boo, I'm going to boo. And I do understand, having been to over 24 different countries, that there's certain traditions there. Sometimes people whistle, sometimes they clap. Just depends on the culture. I'm sensitive to some of that stuff. But the idea that the very act of clapping is offensive and that it's now being banned at different campuses, including apparently the latest one, the University of Manchester in England, has now ruled that students should use jazz hands instead of clapping because it's offensive. My God, these are future leaders of the world, and we're educating these kids. We're paying all this money to a university to teach their kids that clapping is offensive. This is ridiculous. Okay, so that's just for the C. All right, now let's talk about E for exotic, all right? Now, apparently, um, if you use the word exotic in the minds of what people call social justice warriors, these are people who tell you how to behave and not behave, especially on social media. These are the same types that will get a statue of Venus or David banned because it dares to show nudity. They're saying that if you use the word exotic, that has nasty racial underpinnings. Okay, now they can't explain why it does because it doesn't, but that's what they're saying it does. And that it is major verbal microaggression. Now, again, now keep in mind there's macroaggression, there's mini aggression, there's microaggression. This is major verbal microaggression with nasty racial underpinnings. If I dare to say that something is exotic, all right? Yeah, it's that ridiculous, folks. Now, I got news for these bozos who think this way. Having been to, or lived in 27 different countries, I can tell you that there's many exotic places out there. I have seen them firsthand, and they've been all over the planet on different continents. And there's no racial anything. If I say that, Nice, France is an exotic location, it's because I'm telling the truth. It is. And while I understand that the beach may not be for everybody, in my opinion, it's an exotic location. Just like I found the ruins of Pompeii to be an exotic location. Very profound place to visit and see. I found Dachau concentration camp to be an exotic location, meaning it stood out. It was unique. Was there racism anything in my view on that? No. Now the Nazis that persecuted the Jews and other people and homosexuals, yeah, there was hatred and racism there, but that's not what they're talking about here. They don't even know what they're talking about. So the idea that if something is exotic is, a major verbal microaggression is just ridiculous, but this is how these people think. All right, we'll be back after this commercial break, and we'll talk about another term that is politically unacceptable, and that's the word fat. Boy, that's a really loaded word. We'll be back after this break.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.